I have to bring something up that's a sensitive subject, but has to be addressed. Our website is not a political forum, and we have people espousing their political philosophies, and it's just not acceptable. We are apolitical here. Everyone is welcome. Write to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Don't write to us. Okay? And then just a couple quick things. First, on your table is an envelope. You need to pay $12.
Picnic is 12.
I'm a sales guy, okay? If you guys, Lenny, if your table would have kept their mouth shut, I could have gotten a dozen guys to pay 12. Thank you for your help.
No tariffs here.
All right, guys, there's a table captain. Please pay your $10. If you want to put a couple of bucks in there, we can always use it for the food bank, or for IDF. All right, now, Nelson, can you stand up for a second? Okay, hold him up, Mike. Last Sunday night, JCRC. Last Sunday night, JCRC honored Nelson Melitz. There were only two people, well, actually, there were two Israeli soldiers and Nelson. And those who you don't know, he's a retired United States Air Force colonel. Thank you. I told you I work alone. I don't need the pauses.
Know about that too.
With 3 combat tours, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Vietnam. And so he put in a big plug for us when he accepted his award and talked about the things that we at South Jersey Men's Club do.
Can I quickly say something?
I'm sorry?
It's not just me, but it is the South Jersey Men's Club that does these things. I put out the 3,000 flags, U.S. flags, the 1,200 Israeli flags. They give food, give everything we can to help the Israeli Defense Forces. Please continue to volunteer. We do things in the local area, the pantry Mike was just talking about. What to talk about? I'm not sure. But things like this. We're the only club in the United States that I'm aware of that actually supports the community instead of just the synagogue, which isn't bad supporting a synagogue, but when you support your community, you're doing above and beyond. So thank you. Sorry, Rob.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I make exceptions. Ed McMahon once in a while.
Yeah.
All right, I have 2 checks in my hand. One I'm making out for $24, and one is $22. The first one for $22 is for the Yom HaShoah candles. And the second one is for our picnic, which is for $24. And that's May 18th. It's at Red Bank Park. Okay. We just have a couple other things to clean up here. We have some new guests. If Irving, can you just stand up and briefly tell us who you are?
Everybody stand.
Good morning, everybody.
Stand.
What's that? Stan.
I just want to talk about this real quick.
Okay.
You got it? Okay.
How you doing? Irving Fisher is my name, and Abe, wherever he is, Abe Fergus is the one that told me about this. And
You know you're judged by the company you keep.
he's a good guy as far as I know, but I don't know him very well.
Where is this guy staying? Where is he?
And, I came from
Guy with a
Pennsylvania.
t-shirt.
No, Mitch.
This guy with a t-shirt.
No problem at all. I feel comfortable already. I don't know if I can do
No,
this.
we'll do that after the record.
All I know is the coffee is good.
Okay, Mitch? Thank you, Irving. Mitch?
Morning, everybody. Mitchell Richmond or Mitch, I don't care. Newly retired, so anything that keeps me out of my wife's hair is a plus, so.
Where did you retire from?
Well, which one? First, second, or third retirement?
We want to do it after
Family
the record.
physician
Okay.
for 24 years. Healthcare manager for 7-8 years. And retail supermarket for 6 years. That was a change.
Are we missing anybody? Anybody else here?
I don't care what you do, just get out of the house.
We're going to start. Here we go. Steve Chazanoff, United States Air Force, will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve. Eli, I've told you guys this before, but it's worth repeating. He is the wheelman. What we bring, what Mike and Nelson get together for the IDF, it gets to Israel with Eli. He's the bag man, he's the wheelman. Hatikva is on your tables. A couple guys have decided to use it as a placemat. Let's try to avoid that. We try to use them every week. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Eli. Bob, can you come up with the motzi?
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
The first announcement is by Rich. Rich.
Good morning, guys. This is a reminder that next month, Wednesday, April 23rd, is the annual Community Holocaust commemoration observance, Yom HaShoah. And Men's Club, for decades, has been giving out the Yom HaShoah yellow Yortzeit candles, and we'll be doing it again this year. The date is Wednesday, April 23rd. Wednesday, April 23rd. Yes?
What time is the program?
The program starts at 7. I'd like the guys to be there by 5:36, because that's when we start getting the bags of candles and set up to hand out. It's at Adith Emmanuel, which is 205 Elbow Lane in Mount Laurel. So again, that's Wednesday, April 23rd, Adith Emmanuel. Be there by 5:36. The guest speaker is Rosalie Simon. She'll give her compelling account of survival from Hungary to Auschwitz to the United States. She was freed along with her 4 sisters and still demands accountability from the perpetrators of the Holocaust. So again, Wednesday, April 23rd. Now the cases, Stan, how much are the cases now? $88? Is it a case? Total with shipping is $88. And the Men's Club, of course, supports the whole program. So we do take donations. You could buy a case, half a case, quarter case, whatever you like. Please give your checks over to Stan, and these are the yellow yard-side candles, and we'll be giving them out then. Thank you.
I wanted everyone to know that this is Dr. Moskowitz. He's the caterer. If there's a problem with anything, you didn't like the bagel, I have his cell phone, and he will address the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he controls the locks.
Here you go. Guys, I have a bunch of these brochures that I was asked to bring here. The JCC is experimenting with an adult day camp here on June 11th to the 13th. So Mitch, you'll be out of the house for 3 days. And basically the concept is to try and recreate for adults, or I should say senior adults, the activities of a camp. It's 3 days. All expenses are included for meals and snacks and speakers. It's a Wednesday to Friday. On Thursday, there'll be a bus trip into the Jewish Museum for a special tour, which we'll all have. There'll be music, there'll be games, there'll be other. If you would just pick up the brochures, you can register online. If you have any questions, there's a name and
right here.
Right here. All right. Thank you.
No, hold on 1 second. Alan has gone out of his way to pick this up, and I hope that he gets some support here, and we have some people participating in this program, and I appreciate you coming up and telling this.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll share my commission with you.
Yes. No, it's just $5.
That's more than my
You to me.
commission.
You to me.
Okay, Mike, you're next.
Good morning, gentlemen. Let's try it again. Good morning, gentlemen. Got several things to talk to you about. One of them is, shh. One of the things is that in the law breakfast that we've done, how many people have ever attended a law breakfast? Okay, it is rather impressive. We'll have a couple hundred guys. It's very safe. Almost everybody's got a sidearm. We'll have everything from the Cherry Hill Police to police from 7 counties, police chiefs. They'll be here. The state police will be here. Sometimes the FBI will be here. Sometimes other groups like that will be here. Border Patrol, you never know. And this will be in September. It'll be on a Tuesday. And just letting you know about it so that you can look forward to it. It's quite exceptional. Another thing about it is that the real purpose of the breakfast is so that the senior management in law enforcement, municipal, state, federal, see the Jewish community as more than just another minority. And we've developed some rather good relationships. And in these days, safety is a very high priority, isn't it? A second thing is that we've been doing volunteer... Not yet.
It's going to be...
It'll probably be either the first or second Tuesday in September. Because the third is, I believe, Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so there's a lot of logistics that have to be done to figure it out. They have mandatory law enforcement meetings, state, federal. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, and I appreciate all the help that goes into it. Now, another thing, Israel donations. I've mentioned this at most meetings, and that is that we actually bring things to Israel. How do we do it? Let's assume that Dave is going to Israel. We'll end up arranging for him to bring a small suitcase that somebody donates, and it'll be full of things that have been requested, not what we think they need, but what the immediate needs are. I've spoken about this in prior meetings, so there's no need to go into detail. Sometimes we have plenty of money for it, but if you have a strong feeling and connection with Israel and you want to help out with the purchases, please let our treasurer know, Stan. Stan, raise your hand. Stan. I believe the total now is I think over the last several years, we've spent 6, 7, 8,000 supplying them with things that are requested by specific units. Now, sometimes you'll speak to an Israeli says, we got everything we need. It's not like our army at all. That's not the case. Anyway, moving on from that. The volunteer survey. The volunteer survey are things that you can do to help, that we do for the community, for our group. This is a surprising thing. A whole lot of us put it together. This first page has 14 different items, only for this breakfast. 14 different things have to be done. And nobody gets burned out because everybody does a little something. So let's assume that all you do is you're going to help, I don't know. You decided you're going to come in for the breakfast early, and they got these big jars of herring, and you're going to just sit at the table and put them into the small dishes that go on the tables. No big deal. But that means somebody doing 5 things doesn't have to do 6. And that's why nobody ever gets burned out in our group. And we do more stuff than any 10 groups you know put together. How do we know? This volunteer list has 56 items, and we forgot a couple. But what if you say, well, I can't get around that good. I did all this stuff when I was working. Well, if everybody in the room did a lot when they're working, right? And if everybody said, well, I don't have to do it, let somebody else. Nothing gets done. So yes, the guy who's, I'll make something up. The guy who's cleaning the table after the meeting, he might be a former surgeon or an engineer or a school principal. So no, you're not too important. That's why we're all wearing these shirts, okay? Do something. If you haven't done this survey yet, I think we have about a dozen here today. More than half of the people have. I believe, Joel, we've got, about 55 so far, right? Get one today. Don't leave until you finish it. Okay, any questions? This is a great way to give back, folks. It really is. And you don't have to do a lot. And if you're trapped at home for whatever reason, there's things here you could do from home. I think it's a couple dozen, actually. Okay, another thing I was asked to mention is, as you know, every one of our meetings for the last 34 years has been videotaped, right? And currently, of course, there's a live stream. We have people watching from home or on vacation, sometimes from a hospital bed, believe it or not, our members. But we have some that are old technology, and we have a box of, 8mm tapes, all sorts of things, right? VHS. And we need somebody to take your time, a group of you, to convert them to digital formats so that the speakers that we had 25 years ago can still be watched by people from home or wherever you are. So if you can do that, let me put it another way. The guy who's storing these boxes of tapes is relocating to Florida. If we don't have somebody who's willing to help digitize them, they're gone. Okay? If you have any questions about that, Dave, would you stand up, please? Dave has the tapes here now. Please see Dave. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're having the picnic May 18th. So please start paying for it. It's $12 a person, and it's a great picnic. We've been doing that for, I think, at least 5 or 6 years, and we get a nice crowd and a lot of good food. So please sign up. You can sign up on the webpage, or you can give Stan money for it. $12.
And wives are invited.
Right, wives are, actually wives will have to come, yeah.
It's a cheap date.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have a
One thing.
Yeah.
One thing about this, it's at the Red Bank Memorial Park, and if you're into archaeology at all, Rowan University has an active dig going on, and it's a really beautiful park.
Yeah, there was a major civil, no, there was an independent revolution, yeah.
Abe, why don't you add that you added to the menu, you now have hamburgers in addition to the...
Oh, yes, we're buying hamburgers.
Thank you, Sid.
We're buying hamburgers,
Big step up.
plus hot dogs, and then sandwiches, yeah.
Get more hot dogs.
Well, we're gonna have hamburgers, yeah. You can run out, okay, we'll get more hot dogs.
Good morning, guys. Have I got a deal for you? If you, bless you, if you have any interest at all in becoming even more active and joining the board, we will find a place for you on the board, but before they take away your money envelopes, just put a little star next to your name. That way I'll know to call you, contact you, and we can talk about it. Anything that you've got interested, please bring it to the board. These are, of all of the active people, these are the most interested and active people. And if you aren't here, we do it by Zoom. So don't worry if you're on vacation or you spend half the year in Florida, that's not an issue. Just put a little star, grab your envelope, grab a pen, star next to your name. I'll know that you have some interest in talking about becoming a board member. Questions? Comments?
What do board members do?
What do board members do? We get together every month, so we have one monthly meeting, and we talk about what we're going to do here, what we're going to do outside of here, what we're going to do for the community, how we're going to be involved, anything that's coming up that we want to bring to the group, we discuss it first.
And the fights.
Well,
We always have a fight.
always a fight.
Nothing physical, but a lot of threatening.
Always a fight and a lot of over-talking. So we're going to try to cut down on the over-talk, but you'll feel quite at home.
Just one thing.
We've got the salesman.
About Phil. Phil is an attorney by trade, so when you speak to him, be careful what you say. And usually it's over here, so you can just feel there.
He just likes feeling me up.
Yes, that's right. Can I do it again? Just. Phil is our representative for MAR. That's the Middle Atlantic region. There are over 200 men's clubs around the country. And the Middle Atlantic region is half of Jersey through Virginia. And Phil represents us. He is a past president also, and he's heading up the membership committee meeting, and I thank him for that. Now, just
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, since MAR was mentioned, I'll do a little pitch. If anybody is interested, we've got the International Convention coming up in July. It'll be, I think, July 2nd or July 3rd to July 6th. You can go a day early, you can go 2 days early. There are events before, there are events, I don't think there are any events after. So everybody goes home on Sunday. Chicago, it's fantastic. If anybody was here for the Philadelphia convention, raise your hand. We've got a few. Let's see if we can get even more people to go to Chicago. It was a great group. You've got hundreds of guys, just all super interesting, and it's events planned from 7 in the morning till midnight. You will never be bored. And if you want to learn about religious things, we've got that. If you want to do secular things, fun things, learn about Israel, learn about your local communities, what you can do, go to convention. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going. A bunch of other guys have already paid. Yes?
One thing, we should remind people that Bruce Tomar, the local guy, will be the next international president.
Yes. Well, we've been blessed because right now we've got Alan Budman, who is also a local guy, who is international president. This is a really active region. So our international president, international vice president, the president-elect, all local guys, all in MAR.
The previous one also.
And the previous, okay. There we go. Super, super active region. So not only is it international, but you've got like the best of the best right here in the tri-state area.
Thank you, Bill. Mar has training sessions, and Abe could not make one, so I filled in for Abe.
I'm fully trained.
I'm sorry?
I'm fully trained.
Yes, I know. He's fully trained already, and we're proud of you. Anyway, 70 was the lowest score you could have, and then you were 69. Yeah. I know. Anyway, moving along here, we have books, eyeglasses, and food that we collect every meeting, right over there in the corner. We also have a food bank in Cherry Hill. As I'm a New York guy, so I can't give you directions, but it's very easy to get to. It's 24 hours. It's just for dry goods. Okay? Now, Ed Stein is going to introduce the speaker.
Okay, wait, let me finish. I'm going to be president until June, and then you'll have the pleasure of having Rob as the president. So you won't be allowed to you don't be allowed to talk when he starts. Yeah. Okay, the speaker, Ed's going. Hold on. You see what I mean?
Our speaker, Mark Goldberg.
I'm introducing.
I know that.
Not you.
No. Just, I told you I work alone, please. Now, I assured Mark that...
How about Ken?
Ken, I'm sorry. I assured Ken, I apologize, Ken. I assured him that our record here is 4 guys falling asleep. And we're going to try to beat that. We're looking for 3 guys to fall asleep. That's all. That's max.
Let's go. Okay, now, wait. I'm still president. Good luck with you next year. One more announcement. We're going to have an investment meeting after this. This meeting. It's going to be very quick, 5 minutes. But please come for that. Okay, Ed.
Thank you. I didn't think I was ever going to get on. Phones off. If they ring during the speeches, you get a half a bagel the next meeting. If you don't know how to turn them off, talk to Randy. He's our tech guru. Anyway, we actually have 2 presentations. One's very short. If you recall, a number of months ago, we had Barry Foreman, who is our drone guy. He is the best when it comes to drones. Our subject today is the USS United States. You should all know that if you're reading your emails. Barry did a short drone video on the SS United States. I'm sorry, not USS. SS United States. Leaving Philadelphia 3 or 4 weeks ago. You probably all read about it. We want to show the drone video first, and then we'll have our main speaker. Randy, are you ready? Lights, please. Barry, you want to stand up for a minute and wave to everybody? Thank Barry. So we also have another connection to the SS United States. Abe Furtis, our president, who was with the EPA, was on the SS United States, I think, for a number of visits for pollution control, whatever bad stuff was on there, he handled it. Anyway, this morning we have Ken Mark Goldberg. Ken is with the Army Corps of Engineers. He's been all over the world. I'm going to let him tell you about his history, and he's going to talk to us about the SS United States. Ken? Thank you.
I want to give credit, or you can give blame. Bernie Schuster was the one that recruited me. Can you hear me all right? Yes. All right. I'll try and keep my proper distance. So, and Bernie, ironically, was partners with an uncle of my best friend when I was growing up, and we just sort of found that out happenstance. So a couple things. I did do the 50-50. I lost my tickets. So if the numbers are called and nobody answers, I won. And very convenient. And actually, it's a funny story. So another club I became sort of member of with Nelson was the Jewish War Veterans Post, and it just happened by happenstance. I was coming to the gym on a Sunday, and there was this older woman. She had a box and a walker, and she was kind of struggling with it. And I said, you need some help. It was May Brill, who's 100 years old. If people, and so I walked her from the front door to here, to this room. She told me her whole story. She's a Navy vet. She's an amazing person. And so they recruited me to sit in the meeting, and I came, and I did 50-50, and I won. So I'm going to win again. I have very good luck. Of course, I knew it was a Jewish group because, people say, oh, congratulations, good, beginner's luck. And Perry Levine, who's the treasurer for the Post, came over to say, I thought he was going to say, congratulations for winning. He said, peel off $36 for your dues from the top of it. So I said, take it all. Which, if I win, I plan to do the same. So I'm going to talk about the SS United States. That was a very nice drone video. Actually, I was out on the Pelican, which is one of the tugs that day. So couldn't see me, but I saw myself on that video. It's a very interesting story. So I'll go into that. Don't touch anything here. So as far as my background, I say I'm 40 years deep state. I've been working for the federal government since I'm 19, since 1985. I didn't know it was deep state until a few weeks ago. But I started my career at the Navy Yard, and I was 19. I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to Penn State. I grew up in Cheltenham, went to Cheltenham High School. So I worked at the Navy Yard for 9 years, and I loved it. I left because they closed it, at BRAC 95, and I was able to get a job with the Corps of Engineers working on a dredging ship. So I've been with the Corps for 30 years, mostly working like dredging. We have 5 bridges, 5 dams in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. But I've also had some interesting assignments. I spent 2 years working in Manhattan for the New York District Corps of Engineers. Interesting, people don't know this, but the Manhattan Project was named because the group in charge was the Manhattan District of the United States Army Corps of Engineers. That's the origin of the Manhattan Project. And I spent 5 years in Israel working for the Corps of Engineers, building facilities for the IDF. Maybe some other point I can give a presentation about that. While on that topic, I just thought this an interesting thing, and you guys sang Hatikva, and it reminded me. So like I said, I was posted U.S. Embassy, Tel Aviv, and all the embassies, they have their big parties for their national events. So the U.S. Embassy, July 4th, French Embassy, Bastille Day, Irish Embassy. So they all have, so they all can go to each other's parties. So, but they were big deals. So I went, quite a few years for the embassy, U.S. Embassy, July 4th celebration. They had it at the ambassador's residence, which Trump has sold to Sheldon Adelson. But it was a beautiful house, pool up on the hill in Herzliya, Patuach. And the tradition is they sing the U.S. national anthem, and then they sing the local national. You know, it's like going to a baseball game in Canada. So, you know, I'm an American, I'm a Jew, I'm signed to the embassy. So, you know, the Americans sing the U.S. I guess Star Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can you see? So that was good. And then they sang Hatikva, and all the people that worked there, the guys, you know, the cooks and were Israeli, and they sang Hatikva, and it was like 10 times the volume, with 10 times the energy, and 10 times the passion. So it was a little bit mixed feelings being a Jew, but they blew us away. But of course it was local. But it was very, very nice to hear Hatikva at the U.S. Embassy's ambassador's residence. So that's a little bit of my background. I got involved with the United States because I've been aboard for work, and it's just a very interesting thing. It was in Philly for 29 years. At Pier 82, Barry's photo drone showed it at Pier 82. It was moved on February 19th, and it took a 2-week voyage to Mobile, Alabama to be prepared to be reefed off the coast of Okaloosa County, Florida. So I'll give a presentation about some of the history, and what I suggest, I don't know what kind of time it is, I'll try to be rather quick before I get the fourth person asleep. But if you have any questions during it, raise your hand and ask me a question. It's much more interesting when it's interactive if somebody has a question. So I see it says how we handle. So we'll get started if I can figure this out. So anyway, this first picture actually is a rendering. Rob said he's from New York. Obviously that's the west side of New York. That's the Hudson River around Pier 54, Hudson Yards, Jacob Javits Center. There was a company called RXR Realty, which is a pretty big $30 billion real estate group, and they put $6 million into a study, and they wanted to put her there, which is where she belongs. I mean, she was built in Newport News, Virginia, but she you know, it says on the bow, on the stern, I'm sorry, SS United States, New York. So she was home ported there. The problem is it's 990 feet long, 960 feet at the waterline, and that's linear with the river, you know, and there's the west side greenway. So people jog there. So there was a lot of opposition to put a 990-foot basically wall there. So it's not really viable. They did the math as far as the numbers to generate, it's $1 billion conversion job, $500 million for the ship, this is a couple years ago, and $500 million for the pier, which of course everything would grow. So they figured that they could support it because they could put convention, meeting rooms, you know, maybe potentially casino, but they didn't factor that into their math. And the location could do it, but nowhere else in the world could support $1 billion capital investment. So, you know, people keep saying still now they want to save it, make a museum. It's very unlikely. So the Conservancy sold it to Okaloosa County, Florida for $1 million, and they're going to plan to reef it. So that's just a rendering, but it's a nice one. It's how she could look. That's how she does look. Still pretty great. She's 70 years old. You know, and in Barry's footage, I mean, she's still awesome. Lines and there's not every plate on that ship is curved. It was custom built, and she looks fast sitting there. The funnels, which are her sort of iconic feature, are sloped back, so she looks like she's moving when she's not. She's the fastest ship in the world in terms of holding the speed record between England and the U.S. She still holds the record. It's called the Blue Ribbon. She was doing 40 knots. And I think she is still sort of like classified to her top speed, but she could go faster reverse than the Titanic could go forward. She could do 20 knots backwards. She has 4 propellers. It's a huge plane. It's 270,000 horsepower. I'll get into it, but this is the IKEA ship, because if you go to IKEA in South Philly, that's the view. So, like I said, anyone has any questions, ask me. I'm during it, but it's a pretty fascinating story. Like I said, I'm a mechanical engineer. I worked for the Navy for 9 years, and I work on a dredging ship for the Corps of Engineers. So, you know, I like ships, and this is one of the best. So she was designed and conceived by William Francis Gibbs, who has actually a Philadelphia connection. I think he might have even gone to school here. The ship was built, I think, $73 million in 1952 or $1950. 70% of that was subsidized by the U.S. he had sold it to the government as a kind of a proof of concept ship for the U.S. Navy to test out basically propulsion systems and different things, and also it can be converted for troop carriers. This is, post-World War II, getting in the Cold War, they could transport 14,000 troops, so that's why the government had interest in the construction. She was constructed in Virginia, like I said, largest. She's not a cruise ship, she's an ocean liner. Cruise ships, have slides and balconies. She didn't have it, but she was built to transit, the Atlantic, the North Atlantic, before basically jet travel. And what put her out of business was the 707, which came into service, I think, in the '67. She went. She was retired in 1969. She sailed for 17 years. I think 400 voyages. She had aluminum superstructure. That's the I'm going the wrong way. The superstructure is really going the wrong way. The superstructure is that the part above above the waterline. So she was aluminum. The rest of it, she was steel, and that was for weight, so she could sit higher and move faster. This is very, very innovative aspect, very unusual. Fireproof interior. Gibbs was really concerned about fire. The quote about Gibbs would say, I think he said, you can't sink her, you can't beat her, and you can't burn her. That was his line. And there was no wood on board. It was part of his thing. And there was a couple things that people sort of anecdotally, and actually the group that owned the conservancy, there was wood. The butcher block in the galley was like this thick, and the habit was wood. And the pianos on board, the Steinways, were mahogany. And Gibbs went to Steinway and said, "Look, I want an aluminum piano." And Steinway said, "Fuck you, I'm not making an aluminum piano." But Steinways were the best, and Steinway said, "All right, well, you want it fireproof?" He said, "Yeah." He said, so he poured gasoline on one of the mahogany Steinway grands and lit it on fire, and it didn't burn because it's so dense. So they actually have, there's one of them I know that they still have in storage. So that was the only wood on board. Some of the details, 32-foot draft, that's the area under the waterline, 12 decks, 990 feet, which is big. It's a little smaller than an aircraft carrier, which are over 1,000 feet. The beam, I know there's some Navy guys here, so the beam is the width of the ship. Does anybody know why 101.5 feet is significant? Panama Canal. So she could fit through the Panama Canal. I think the Panama Canal is 103 feet. The problem, 175 feet air draft. Well, it's 150 feet air drift. That's from the waterline to the funnels. That's pretty high. There was an issue of getting her out under the Waltman Bridge. She had to go out under high tide. She was low tide. She went under high tide to get out from the pier, and then low tide. I'm glad you guys are paying attention, except for the people that are asleep. Service speed is 26 knots, so knots like 1.15 miles per hour. She did 30, but that's fast. Top speed of 43 knots. The carriers do that, which is amazing. A ship can be propelled like that. 45,000 tons, 2,000 passengers, crew of 900. Like I said, for the conversion, it's 14,000 troops. They never use it as a troop carrier. But as an example, like I said, the cruise ships, the Icon of the Seas, which is the world's largest cruise ship, 10,000 people on board, 1,200 feet, 250,000 tons. It's 6 times the size of the United States. 20 decks. I mean, they're crazy, the ships now. But go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, no, good. I want questions. Yeah.
Was the United States constructed and engineered so that in wartime it could easily add anti-aircraft guns and guns of that sort?
No, there was no armament really, and she wasn't built like the battleship. You shouldn't have thick armor. Maybe slightly, but maybe they would have put 50 cals on, but she would have been escorted But she wasn't a warship. She was a troop carrier. I mean, not that I'm aware of, at least.
Thank you. One other question.
Yeah, sure.
2 funnels, does that mean 2 reactors?
No, she's a conventionally, it's not nuclear. So there's four. She's not nuclear. She's non-nuclear. She's bunker marine, diesel fuel basically, kerosene, or actually heavy bunker fuel like oil. So the 2 funnels were there's 4 engine sets. They're steam turbines. Interesting enough, her sister ship, the America, had 2 funnels, but only one was active. One was a dummy, and for looks. But these were both used, and it's funny because I saw an aerial shot, and when somebody said, "Well, is that the America, the United States?" and it was steaming, the ship at the time, and there was smoke only coming out of one funnel. So we said, "That's the America," because the other they only had 2, only one active funnel. Okay, so as I said, it's a Philly thing. Gibbs was born in Philly. Delancey, so I guess that's really like Delancey Street, Harvard College. I think he dropped out, became a lawyer. It's a different era. Him and his brother started a naval architect firm, Gibbs Brothers, and then actually it's a big deal. The Leviathan. I mean, you guys have been around a while. The Leviathan was a German ship that they converted. That's how they kind of made their initial nest egg. And then he worked. This was his life ambition to build this ship. Talked about the wood. 4 U.S. presidents. Truman, I think, was on 6 times. I actually went to I'm wearing my Leavenworth shirt. I went to a school at Leavenworth, and Harry Truman Presidential Library is in Independence, Missouri, which is Kansas City. I went to the library, and I found, they have papers, and I found, actually, I think in this presentation, some interesting things from Eisenhower, Kennedy. Clinton went when he was a Rhodes Scholar. Like I said, the ship was to go back and forth from England, France to New York, with cargo. One of the famous things she transported was the Mona Lisa at one point, So she was the shit, and it was before air travel. Like I said, converted to a troop carrier. 10,000 miles is a pretty long journey. $72 million cost. That's the nameplate. What's sort of interesting, you can't see this from here, but when you go on board, everything is engraved below the United States, the word United States, and that's actually painted on. And the legend is that they were debating what the name was going to be till the last minute, so they left the name blank, and then they painted it on. That will be saved. That's a pretty significant, but it's welded onto the ship. People sometimes call it the USS United States. USS is a United States ship. That's reserved for Navy ships. She was the steamship United States. Other than potentially used as maybe they would rename her. Maybe that was it. It just says United States, but she's the SS United States. 52 was the maiden voyage. People call it the Blue Ribbon, but it's really the Blue Riband. And there's actually a trophy. She's fast as shit. Power numbers, you were asking us, 8 boilers. There's 1,000 PSI steam plant, which was unusual. Most of the ships, before there were 600 pounds. The carriers, which this plant was a prototype for, are 1,200 pound plant. But this was the first of its kind. 4 propellers. 2 4-bladed, 2 5-bladed. A lot of technology goes into that. That was all top secret. Still, a lot of propeller designs, which the Navy still makes propellers for the Navy, are very proprietary. The distance is pretty impressive, 12,000 miles. That's, I guess it's like a 3,000-mile one-way trip from England. Like I said, she could go faster backwards than the Titanic could go forward. So that's a bit of the background, and then of course she went back to Newport News just for a regular service call, and then the United States Lines did the math, and they said, we're going to retire her, and then it sat in Newport News at the Ready Reserve Fleet, and then at some point it was, I'm not going to show any videos, Randy, because there's plenty to do here. At some point, these are just sort of some links. At one point, she was towed to Ukraine and Turkey, and she was stripped of all her interior, a lot of asbestos. So if you had gone on board here when she was in Philadelphia, she's stripped bare. I think I have some pictures of the interior. They had an auction in the 80s, in the 80s, where all the china and stuff was auctioned off. But she's a shell as she sits now. This is an interesting picture. This is at Pier 82 on the right, Pier 80 on the left. That ship is the Army Corps of Engineer dredge McFarland, which is the ship I work on. It's a 300-foot hopper dredge. We just happened to be there at the same time. It's my screensaver. It's kind of cool for me. One of the issues when she'd been sitting there and they were talking about moving her, and this is a little hard to see, but it's a representation, it's a hydrographic survey, it's the bathymetric depth of the ship, and then we do surveys, the Corps of Engineers. We had just done a training exercise. Let's see if I can get the laser. That's the ship here. This is the water, this is an animation. So red is like 20s, and this is 25, so she's 32 foot loaded, so she's like 28-foot drift. She's stuck. She's not going anywhere. It had to be dredged. And that was in February 2016. And then I had gotten a little more involved, and we had done another run. I said, well, let's see where she is now. Because everyone said, well, you're not going to be able to pull her out. I said, well, let's if that's true. So we did the survey in 24, and I said, this is the first self-dredging ship I've ever seen, because it went 8 years, it got better. What happened was the Philiport, which is the port administration for Philadelphia, they dredged this for Pier 80, because Pier 80 is an active port for mostly paper ships come in. So that's why she got better. So, but when they needed to pull her out, it was not an issue. One of the pilots said, if you get her ass out, the rest will follow. So the stern was pretty free. So they didn't have much issue. So 2 days prior to the movement out to Mobile, she actually, the pilots and the tugs shifted her to Pier 80. They shifted her over here. Barry, you don't have video of that, but that was to make sure she could move. Once again, they did that at high tide. They waited 2 days. They waited for low tide to get her under the Walt Whitman Bridge. That's the United States, and that's the America, like I said about the funnel. So I think this is the America in the foreground. One of those funnels is this dummy. That's Manhattan. She would go, they had this regular service. Gibbs and Cox office actually is down in Lower Manhattan. This has been Manhattan. And when they would go by, they'd give a whistle to the office every time. Huh?
Where's the American now?
Oh, it was a sad story for her. She sunk. They abandoned her. There's pictures of her, like, just decayed, like in Turk, like some weird place. Yeah, I don't have any picture of that, but yeah, she was abandoned. This is when I went to the library, the presidential library. This is actually an actual copy of their 1956 sailing, so you can see how often, there's the America and the United States. They were just like, it's like a bus, just back and forth every week. He's from Europe to, that's just the two ships. This is actually Pier 80, if you can see it. This says United States lines, which we just found that. I just found that recently. We were doing it when we did that because the United States line was actually, they ran the liners, but they also ran cargo. So Philly wasn't a port for the SS United States, but it was for the United States lines. It was a very big shipping outfit. So I told the port, the port owns this building. They need to save that. This is probably 15 years ago. We went on a tour with the Coast Guard. Actually, this guy here, that dredging ship, he's the captain. It's Carl. He's from Long Island. I just like this because my hair is dark in this picture.
Move the mic towards.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is on the bridge. Actually, that is the pilot table where they would put the charts. It's not a very big bridge. I don't think I have a copy of the bridge. This is an interesting because I don't think I have that many pictures, but that's what the interior looks like. You know, it's all bulkhead. You know, that was all had joinery. It was all finished. There's nothing. It's, you know, so people want to, you know, save it as a museum. There's nothing. There's nothing there. This is interesting. So I was on, you know, on board one time. One of the guys, the caretaker, he said, you know, we had Philly Fire Department on board, and they were like, they saw this engine, and they're like, oh, it's a Detroit diesel. You can see, GM. Electromotive, which was Detroit diesel. It's actually it's a 6-71. It's a 6-cylinder engine, and it's the driver for the fire pump on board the United States. It's a steam ship. They had 3 diesel engines, a Ford fire pump, an aft fire pump, and an emergency diesel generator. Everything else was steam driven. Anyway, they're like, oh, you know, they were pretty impressed by that engine, which is 7 years old. I took pictures of the hour meters. The after one had 246 hours after 70 years, or 17, and the Ford one had 13. So obviously, it was not a fire problem. If you have 13 hours on an engine, they didn't even. That was like probably for trials. The 246 is because they would do drills. You know, so that's very, very low. So the engines were basically new. And what was interesting to the fire department, they have 2 fireboats in active status, Philadelphia Fire Department. The Franklin and the Delaware, they were built in 1950. Their fire pumps, same engines. So I don't know if I have a picture, but we went and, I think I talked about that. We went and we took the parts off the United States, and the fire department now has a bunch of spare parts for their engines. And the only thing they have to do is they have to paint them red, because the fire department engines are red and the United States was gray. But it was I was doing some research. I looked, you know, up to 671, and the 71 is the displacement. It was a very significant engine in U.S. history, world history. But Gibbs actually, you know, he was a naval architect, and he designed the landing craft that were used in World War II, of which 57,000, you know, GM 671s were the propulsion for that. They used them on tanks. It's a very, you know, well, Bernie's a big engine guy. So it was a very big truck engine, bus engines. A very, very famous engine.
That was the engine before the V92.
Yeah, it was the engine. It was you know. I guess just to make America great again, but you know, but that was a pretty significant engine. Like I said, when I went to the library, you were able to, you know, I became a researcher. This is in pencil, and they give you access to all their books and all their papers, and they had, you know, tons of stuff for Truman. I found like this, for example. That's an actual telegram from Richard Daley to Truman while he was on board, wishing him a happy birthday. It's kind of neat, you know. They had a newspaper on board, so I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I'm looking at that, and this is like a real copy, and then I saw this, you know, like when you start going down past, they lead you. So there was a thing about the USS Nautilus, so I was like, oh, let me talk about that, and then the Nautilus, this has nothing to do with the United States, but with shipping and marine history, it's a pretty significant thing, so I thought I could talk about, you know, this. So the Nautilus was the first nuclear submarine, a very significant vessel in itself. They named it after the Captain Nemo's fictional sub. I'll talk about that in a second. Also built in 1952 when the United States was working, and then Truman was the one that commissioned it, and Mamie Eisenhower sponsored it, delivered to the Maine in 1955, and decommissioned in 1980. She's in a museum now in Connecticut.
Was Jimmy Carter captain of the Nautilus?
No way. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Carter was a nuclear engineer, but he was not captain of the Nautilus. No. I don't think he might have been on the Nautilus. I mean, Jimmy Carter was, and people don't know this, but he graduated from Naval Academy as an engineer. He was a nuclear engineer. He was the father of the nuclear navy was Admiral Rickover, and he was interviewed by Rickover. And Carter was quite heroic. There was a reactor failure. I think it might have been in Russia or something, and he went into containment, you know, and they didn't know as much exposure risk, but he went in to salvage and save from a meltdown. So Carter was a pretty significant naval guy, but no, he wasn't captain, I'm sure. I don't know what his rank was. He left the Navy, I think, because his father died and he took over the peanut farm. So I don't think his rank was probably that high.
Shannon, I was going to say, he's 14 years in the Navy, Carter never made it above lieutenant.
Yeah, so there's no, yeah. And I don't think the timing would have worked, but he may have been on board, but I don't think so. So anyway, this is interesting to me. So people, the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So I always thought, and I worked for the Navy, and I said, that's depth, right? 20,000 leagues under the sea. I own a house on League Street, which I'll talk about in South Philly, and a league is 3 nautical miles. So it's like 3.5 miles. So 20,000 leagues under the sea would be impossible. It's a French book. It's actually, the translation is 20,000 leagues beneath the sea. So it's a 20,000 league linear voyage. That's what it means. So most people don't know that, and this is kind of funny how words, get sort of understood and interpreted. And what's League Street? What's interesting? Nobody knows this, but so I have a house on League Street, which is basically 10th and Washington in Italian Market, and the Navy Yard, which is where I worked. There's a street here called Government Avenue. So when the Navy, when this was transferred from the city to the federal government, somebody said, well, let's measure 3 nautical miles and we'll rename the street that it lands on League Street, which is my street. So I knew when I lived at League Street, and I knew I was 3 nautical miles from work. It's just kind of funny. Exactly. So. Well, I said that's the Stern. She's home ported in New York. That's why she belongs in New York if she were going to be made a museum or a multi-use ship. I think that's it. Yeah.
What was the transit time?
We do it by the table, because you can go crazy with the questions.
Okay, how do we do it?
Okay, Ed, you start off. Your table 7?
What the transit time was?
I think 3.5 days. I think 3,000 miles is pretty good.
Dave?
What happened to the company?
United States Lines is I don't know. They went bankrupt. Maritime trade is all now, Chinese and European. There's very few. President Line, I think, but yes, they're gone.
Anybody else from table 7 with a question? Table 8. Bob?
Did you have any connection with the SS Savannah, the nuclear powered?
That's a USS Savannah. Oh no, SS. You're right. It's a steamship. Was it a Navy? No, it was a maritime. No, I was not. It's in Baltimore. I'd never even been on board it. I'd like to go.
Table 9. Irving?
Double hull?
No, single hull. They would never even heard of double hull in 1950. Yeah.
Layers of steel.
No, I know. No, she's single hull. There was no such thing as a double hull ship. Actually, the Valdez, which was in the 80s, that created that requirement.
Table 6, Marty?
Did they ever consider moving into Brooklyn?
Yeah. There's actually a guy. His name's Quad Rosie. He's a concrete guy. He keeps surfacing. He says he's got a pier there, but does he need $1 billion? So it's not. I don't know what's going on. It's not viable. And I actually had a bunch of meetings. And really, the only play was West Side of Manhattan. Nobody else could. Talk about Miami. They were talking about San Juan, but
Jersey could use it.
Hold on, guys.
I can tell you about that too. But
we're at this table. Alan?
When and where is the ship going to be sunk?
Well, right now it's in Mobile at a salvage yard called Mars. They're going to take the funnels off because they want to sink her as a dive reef. So obviously the tunnels will stick out of the water. You want to be at like 60 foot, depth. So they'll cut the funnels off. They say 6 months to a year somebody mentioned the EPA, they're going to have to, they have some PCBs and stuff on board. She's scheduled to be sunk about a year from now off the Panhandle, off Destin, Florida, which is like Pensacola sort of area. And then she'll be sunk at a depth of, 100-something feet, where she'll sit at the bottom, and then the top will be at 60 feet.
Table 5, Barney?
Yeah, one of the cruise lines announced that they were going to start using Philadelphia as a home port. Any idea where they'll dock their ships?
It's an interesting question, because I deal with the port all the time. They were looking at the Navy Yard. I don't think they have a specific location yet. Of course, that's a complicated issue because they need parking and other things. I don't think that's been set, but I think they have I think it's Norwegian Cruise Lines, and they have they're discussing it. But it's a big deal to have the port down. The Philly was a cruise terminal. At one point, they actually had a thing set up at the Navy Yard, but the problem was the bridge. So it's still, they need to be south of the bridge.
Anybody else at 5? 4, table 4. Any questions?
Yeah, one question. It was retired after less than 20 years after being built in 1952, and it is now moved, and this is 2024. Where was it, and what was it doing all those years that it was retired in the 70s, and this is the mid-2020s?
Yeah, so it's 2025 now, by the way. Yeah.
I said mid-2020s.
You said 2020. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with this one. She was delivered in 1952. Construction started in 1950. She was retired in 1969. She sat at James River, I don't know how, a lot of years, which is the Navy Reserve Fleet, many years. At some point, I don't know the timeline, she went to Turkey, and they stripped her. She was there for quite a while. They stole a lot. I mean, they took a lot of stuff off of it, and then she came back. I think to Philly. Was there 29 years. So do 29 minus 2025. So what? That's 95. So she's been sitting in Philadelphia. She's been at Pier 82 for 30 years, since 1995. So between 1969 and 1995, she was James River and overseas.
Thank you.
3, Vic?
I watch the Military History Channel a lot, and I have a history question for you. I remember hearing on the show, one of the shows when they were talking about the Battle of the Coral Sea and some of the other battles,
Right.
that the American ships were much more fire resistant and much more able to handle fire than the Japanese ships, which pretty much went up in like tinder. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know that much about the Japanese naval architecture, but I would imagine they probably built more quantity. Gibbs, this was not a naval architect, but not a U.S. naval architect, but he was very concerned about fire, and a lot of the Navy designs were based on this, so there may be some, Gibbs may have some credit to that. I think probably the construction was, this is maybe still a bit racist, but I think the Japanese were maybe less concerned about the survivability of the ships, so they were probably, built faster and cheaper.
Doc?
Yeah, how much trouble did you have with the asbestos? That's why they probably...
Well, I didn't have any trouble with asbestos because there's none there. They stripped it of asbestos in the Ukraine.
That's why they were fire resistant, though, because of the asbestos, right?
Well, the fire, certainly the joinery was asbestos. That was a big, asbestos was everywhere. But yeah, there was no, yes. So the asbestos was removed, and there was, you had mentioned like Norwegian company, the Carnival Cruise Line had interest. There was plans over the years to convert this. People really have a lot of nostalgia for the ship, and they wanted to make it, active again. I guess the plan was at some point, to remove asbestos in the U.S. is very expensive, so that's why they shipped it overseas, where they had child labor probably doing it. But there was very little asbestos. Now there's lead paint, there's PCBs, not a whole lot, because there wasn't engines, there was no motors, it was all steam. There's oil, but it's pretty clean.
Table 2, anybody? Table 1, Bernie?
Great presentation.
Thanks.
Next Sunday in this room, the VA is going to be putting on a Battleship New Jersey presentation.
Right.
I was a docent there. That's quite a fascinating ship. So
Oh, that's a
really fascinating. So if you want to come,
yeah. I would, like I said, the conservative people were, we want to make a museum. I'm like, the New Jersey, which is the most decorated ship in U.S. naval history, has 9 16-inch guns, has armor this thick, only gets 70,000 visitors a year. I said, this is, you're not going to get that kind of visitation for the SS United States, even though.
everyone's welcome to come if they want to next Sunday.
What's going to take its place at Pier 82? Do they know yet?
Well, there was a lawsuit that
What was the question?
what's going to be going in place at Pier 82. There's issues with Pier 82. Philiport owns it. They want to make it. They want to actually modify it. So, the piers used to be all finger piers. Ships would come in. That's not how they work anymore now. They're all wharves. So they want to change the configuration to do it right. But it needs a lot of repair before they can do that. So right now, nobody's going to go there.
Jim, you have no question. Jim, will you stand up and take off your mask? Jim is one of our unsung heroes. Every meeting, Jim stays to clean up this room. Okay, we're good. Yes, Mike.
I'd like to also point out that another unsung hero, our videographer, Dave. Relocating to Florida, and this is probably the last time he'll be doing it. Thank you.
Ed?
So, I don't know, actually, so this I'm going to stay away from this. That website is a really good one. That's SS United States Conservancy. They're the owners. For the past 11 years, Jerry Lenfest, who was a big cable guy, he gave $10 million, and that's why they've been paying the rent. But that's an excellent website, and they have all sorts of information and videos. It's a very historical ship. It's a very cool ship. If you want, some more information, I think that's a very active website to go there.
Just one thing, guys like Ken, they don't just walk in here and we have a speaker. Okay, we have to find these guys, and we're very thankful that there's guys around like him that are willing to speak. You must all know somebody who would be interesting to the group. Get a hold of me. My email address is eestein43@gmail. Catch me after the meeting. Tell me who you have. Give me your phone number. We always need speakers. So, like I say, they don't just wander in here.
There's Yashikoa over here for Bernie.
And Bernie, yes, Bernie gets credit for Ken.
And Mark.
And who? And Mark. And Mark. Yeah.
My twin Mark. I got the survey. I'm getting apparently a membership.
Yeah.
Sure. So I do plan to volunteer, and it is nice to meet everyone here. And Phil, I just saw in the gym, and it's good to give back and to get involved and stay involved. It's very important, not only for the people we have, but for oneself. So it's an honor to be, to be with you guys here.
I want to speak on EPA. We followed up. We inspected it almost for 6 years, and there was significant PCB material, and there was some asbestos. I decided never to do an enforcement action because nobody was in it. But as soon as they would do something, we would issue an order to clean it up. So there was a lot of liability there that the people who owned it they were not realistic about it.
Well, they were. That's a whole other story. But the EPA region in Mobile will deal with this, whoever's Abe's equivalent, and it will be an issue. And I would imagine, like a Greenpeace will make it a cause celebre, so won't be easy for them to actually sink her.
I just have one. Jay Sternshos, will you stand up? Has worked for the Navy on several ships. What are the, what's that?
Before his time,
Oh, okay. But can you tell us one of the ships unless,
during the Vietnam War.
okay. Thank you, Jay.
Okay. 50-50.
If he wins, we're not inviting him back.
We got $70. That's a high point.
All right. I have Bernie's tickets too.
Just the last three numbers, Ken.
The last three are 632.
The last three numbers, 632.
I have a 6 and a 2.
You got $10.
Nelson, check Bernie's tickets right there.
Here, right here, it looks like. Come on out.
Okay.
David, 632, that's what it
Put
looks
it
like.
towards the...
He's donating it to the club.
All right.
I'm going to donate.
Thank you.
Got a certificate to give him.
Yeah, hang on, guys. Hang on.
1 year membership?
We have a 1-year membership for Ken to the club.
All right.